Content creators, especially the wildly popular ones who generate views off of critiquing ridiculous content, are the modern executioners, the modern Puritans who tie up the witch and burn them at the stake for all of us to satiate our bloodlust and get rock hard with the feeling of power and virtuousness. Why do we think that we're so special and kind and empathic while everyone in the past was cruel and sadistic? Isn't it more likely that we're cruel and sadistic too, and that we've simply deluded ourselves into thinking that we're not? Holodomor, the Japanese invasion of China during the Second Sino-Japanese War, the Armenian genocide, the genocide committed by the Third Reich, the Rwandan genocide, the Uyghur genocide. What do all of these horrors of the past 100 years have in common? The criminals that committed these atrocities felt some kind of way about those that they were genociding. What was it that they felt exactly? If I had to use one word, it would be contempt. They all believed that their race was superior to another race, but more specifically, they felt that those other races were inferior and they looked down at them with scorn and contempt. They believed that they were the reason that their society wasn't perfect. If only they didn't exist, then all of their problems will go away and we can create utopia. These genocides have happened all throughout history, everywhere around the world. You could even see it happening in the Bible, in Native American tribes, all of these different places throughout the world that have never even interacted with one another at some point in their history, have all either been the perpetrators of genocide or victims of it. Sometimes even they were the victims and then they turned around and did the same exact thing to other people. Now, was there this evil demon ideology floating around and corrupting the minds of all of these human civilizations that never even interacted with one another to commit the same exact atrocities? Perhaps. I mean, I can't prove or disprove that, but what seems the most likely is that there is some deep dark side of all of us, just by virtue of being human, that can commit the worst type of evil against others. More specifically against others that we don't think are part of our tribe, and even more specifically, those we think that are inferior to our tribe. It's only been within the past 200 years that humans actually started to believe that we're the same species. I kid you not, as recently as the 1800s, there were like legit people in academia that actually thought white people, black people, Asian people were actually like a different species. Like we weren't all human. Like, I kid you not. I know that sounds absurd to think about now, but like some people actually believe that. This yellow fella from China who speaks in a tongue I can't understand and looks nothing like me, he must be a dumb idiot. He must be a part of a different species or something. He ain't like my neighbor John, made in the image and likeness of God himself, who's most definitely a white man. Hell, this dude ain't human the same way John and I are human, and he can't even communicate with us because he's plain stupid and can't even speak English. Matter of fact, the white man is pretty great. We ain't nothing like those damn Asians, and don't even get me started on those blacks. Yeah, we're pretty great, God's children. While them other folks ain't even children of God. God made them for us to do with them as we please. Same with the other animals. My pigs, my horses, hey, even my dog Rufus. And hell, I even like some of these blacks and Asians. But I like them the same way that I like my dog. They're still beasts at the end of the day. They don't have the same rights like the white man does. Okay, so this all begs the question. What does this have to do with the manosphere? Well, we've identified that when people do evil stuff to each other, it necessitates some kind of contempt for that person. You think they're lower than you, therefore you criticizing them is justified. And by criticizing them, you elevate yourself and affirm your own greatness and virtuousness. Why is the white man so great? Because he ain't one of them blackies. He ain't one of them damn Chinese. A famous philosopher once said, "A man is a being who measures." And in order for you to measure, you need something to compare it against for reference. In order for that measurement to have any sort of meaning, it needs to be elevated against the thing it's compared to. The creditor is given a kind of pleasure as repayment and compensation. The pleasure of being allowed to discharge his power on a powerless person without having to think about it. The delight in doing wrong for the pleasure of doing it. The enjoyment of violation. This enjoyment is more highly prized the lower and baser the debtor stands in the social order, and it can easily seem to the creditor a delicious mouthful, even a foretaste of a higher rank. By means of the punishment of the debtor, the creditor participates in a right belonging to the masters. Finally, he himself for once comes to the lofty feeling of despising a being as someone below himself, as someone he is entitled to mistreat. In other words, in order for you to feel like you're a good person and that you're smart and that you're wise, you need to compare yourself to someone who's evil, to someone who's stupid. And why do you feel this insatiable desire and need to affirm yourself that you're a good person, that you're a smart person? The same reason that Steve, the home-wrecking neighbor, feels that he needs to nail every guy's wife in the neighborhood. The same reason a group of people feel thrilled by subjecting another inferior race. The same reason young men feel they need to vent and whine about modern women. The same reason modern women want to shame and criticize men in the manosphere and the red pill. The same reason content creators feel the need to go and criticize others in order to make themselves shine by comparison. By inflicting cruelty on those you have contempt for, you can elevate yourself, satiate that innate desire for cruelty and power, and not have to feel bad about it. In fact, you feel good about it. You are serving your purpose in this world and making the world a better place to live in. What a good person you are. I'm about to go super meta here like no other YouTuber, big or small, has ever done, so buckle up, buddy. It's about time for us to dive into the psychology of those who critique the manosphere, and it's time to call them out on their sanctimoniousness. And I include myself in the people I'm calling out. I want you to keep in mind during this section that psychologically, we all go through the same stuff in our development and evolution to become who we're meant to become. Obviously, this includes people who create content. So the same way that the manosphere incels or the far left feminists have to express some kind of cruelty, often in the form of contempt of an other that they compare themselves against, content creators do the same exact thing. Especially within the manosphere where, although ostensibly it's all about how to be a man and self-improvement, let's not lie to ourselves here. 90% of the content is complaining about how much modern women suck. This being an obvious example of satiating your lust for cruelty toward an other that you have contempt for that has power over you in your real life. Then you have those who critique the manosphere, guys like me, who have that same exact energy and motivation, except the object of that cruelty is the manosphere creators and their supposedly incel audience. This lust for cruelty then gets affirmed through getting more money, more views, more clout, more appreciation from the audience who also has that same desire for cruelty, which they can then vicariously live out through the rhetoric of their favorite content creators. It's irresistible. It's a part of human nature. Similar to how I could show you a pornographic image and all of a sudden you're feeling very different than you were a second ago and perhaps tempted to click on the pornographic image to see more. When you see a title of someone I hate getting destroyed by someone I identify with, you need to click on it now. You need to satiate your bloodlust. A bloodlust which manifested itself because the content creator shoved it in your face in an attempt to get other cruelty addicts to click. Content creators, especially the wildly popular ones who generate views off of critiquing ridiculous content, are the modern executioners, the modern Puritans who tie up the witch and burn them at the stake for all of us to satiate our bloodlust and get rock hard with the feeling of power and virtuousness. Metaphorically hard, of course, although a manosphere guy literally wanking it to sexy women getting destroyed by facts and logic, that's not completely untenable. Another way to view content creators, specifically reactive ones who just give their hot takes on modern issues and lampoon the idiots of our world for, educational and entertainment purposes, they're the modern preachers of poison. They are the unscrupulous drug lords of the internet. By the way, this isn't just exclusive to the manosphere or even the internet. Let's just take a look at politics. The things that gets views and clicks and people talking the most, if you're on the left, is like, oh, look at these evil Republicans and what they're doing, the military-industrial complex. And then on the right, they're just like, oh, look, these trans bathroom things, even though there's like 12 trans people in like the entirety of the US, we're just gonna make our whole platform about, not letting them use the bathroom. It's just rage bait, cruelty content everywhere, and we can't. The more ridiculous it is, the more seductive it is, and they take full advantage of that because the primary thing they're trying to do is to gain views and money and clout and whatever else. That's the main motivation. So back to talking about internet content creators specifically, whether they created their audience to become bloodthirsty demons or not, bloodlust and the drive to inflict cruelty is inextricably tied to the human condition. It will always be there. So can you really blame these creators for simply acquiescing to the demands of their audience? I mean, who cares who's causing this bloodlust? They're just giving them what they want. In a world revolved around power, where beings inevitably clash and some interests need to step on other inferior wills to affirm themselves, maybe it's wrong to cast a negative value judgment and call these things evil or have contempt for them. Maybe this is simply just the reality of how the world is. The strong exploiting the weak, and the weak exploiting those even weaker than them to make themselves feel strong. The audience has cruelty inflicted on them in their real lives, and then they search for a cure for their pain in the form of inflicting that same cruelty onto others. They find that release through the internet and their favorite content creators. The content creators poison their audience, and in turn, the audience poisons the content creator back. The creator then continues to sell the drug and gets more of the audience hooked, while he himself gets high off of the validation and money that he makes for selling that drug. In other words, hurt people hurt people. Except every single one of us are hurt. No one is spared from the all too human drive for cruelty. It's a never-ending cycle of bloodlust, cruelty, and contempt that grows bigger and bigger with each cycle, and perhaps the bloodlust can become so overwhelming and large that it begins to bleed over into real life. If gratuitous cruelty is the source of the world's problems, more specifically in this context, online discourse revolving what it means to be a man and how to be attractive to women and so forth, who's the victim of all of this? Who's the perpetrator that deserves all of the blame? People in real life who's cruel to the viewer, causing the viewer to seek a safe outlet for him to express his unrequited cruelty and feel better about himself? The content creator that the viewers live vicariously through in order to inflict their repressed cruelty? Or is it the viewers themselves who collectively influence the influencer to create more cruel content and spread the bloodlust among other unsuspecting content consumers who get sucked in and seduced by the drama because it's entertaining? Here's the answer. Every group is a perpetrator and every group is a victim. And anybody watching this video or not watching this video fits into one of these groups that I just laid out. So that means both you and I and everyone in the world who currently exists or used to exist are all both guilty and not guilty for making the current world as it is through our bloodlust. So if expressing our cruelty and affirming ourselves through that cruelty is something that we are all responsible for in some aspect of our lives, and we are always going to be both a victim and a perpetrator, either explicitly in real life or covertly through the internet, perhaps it really is just a stage of development that we all go through. I mean, that's been the condition of all of humanity for all of history. So why would it be any different now in the 21st century? Why do we think that we're so special and kind and empathic while everyone in the past was cruel and sadistic? Isn't it more likely that we're cruel and sadistic too, and that we've simply deluded ourselves into thinking that we're not? Perhaps cruelty is so innately part of human nature that it is something that we all must express in some way or another in order to be psychologically healthy. Perhaps the fast-growing nihilism and depression among the masses, but especially among young people, is both a result of having cruelty inflicted upon them and not being able to equally express it back. And if that's the case, if we can equalize the cruelty we give out compared to how much we receive, and those we are cruel to can do the same, and there's no longer a large disparity of those who oversatiate their bloodlust versus those who undersatiate it, then maybe instead of this cruelty and bloodlust leading to a downward spiral of depression, nihilism, and violence, it can instead be used to elevate ourselves and lead us on an upward spiral of self-actualization.